Hello everyone. This week's parasha is Parashat Chukat. Throughout the Torah we have different types of mitzvot. We have mitzvot, chukim, and mishpatim. Mitzvot are commandments that if God did not tell us, we would not have come up with them on our own. But once God tells us, we can sort of come up with an idea of why God told us to keep them. For example, Shabbat. We would not have come up with the concept of Shabbat on our own, but once we are commanded to keep Shabbat, we can understand the importance behind it, at least to an extent. Then there are chukim. Chukim are laws. They do not make sense to us. They are because I told you so kind of laws. Then there are mishpatim. Mishpatim, even if God would have not have told us to keep them, we would probably come up with them on our own. They are decent human behavior rules. Don't kill, don't steal. This parsha starts with a chukah, Parashat Chukat. It tells us about the mitzvah of paraduma, the red heifer. And it says when a person becomes impure from coming in contact with a dead person, that they shech the red heifer, they take it, they burn it, they use its ashes, they mix the ashes with water from a ma'ayan, from a natural spring. And then the kohen, the priest, spritzes the person who's impure. The person who's impure becomes pure. And the kohen that does the purification, he himself becomes impure. This is the example of a mitzvah that we do not understand. It is the example of a chukah. The Gemara tells us a story about Dama ben Netina. Dama ben Netina is a non-Jew who owns a precious stone store. And one day, Chachamim come and knock on his door because one of the 12 stones from the choshen that the Kohen Gadol wears, that the high priest wears, goes missing, and they need to buy a new stone. So they come to him, and he goes to get the stones, and the key for the lock, for the safe, is underneath his father's pillow. His father is sleeping. He says, I will not wake up my father. And they say, we'll give you double. He says, I cannot wake up my father, even for double. He says, we'll give you triple. He says, I will not wake up my father for all the money in the world. They go, they buy the stone from somewhere else because they needed the stone right away. And as a reward, the next year, into his herd is born a red heifer, a paraduma. Chachamim come back to him and say, we need to buy a paraduma, we need to buy a red heifer. And he tells them, he says, I know I can ask you for any amount of money in the world and you'll pay it, but I'm only asking for the price of my original price for the stone. It's a beautiful story, and there's one really big question over here. Why is he being rewarded for a mitzvah that makes so much sense? Kibud av va'em, respecting your parents, makes so much sense. Why is his reward a mitzvah that makes absolutely no sense? Paraduma, a red heifer. And I think the reason is to understand that that's life. All the mitzvot, some of them make sense to us, some of them don't make sense to us. But in God's eyes, there's a different type of calculation. We think that we understand the mitzvot, and therefore a lot of people keep mitzvot, just the ones that they understand and that they can relate to. There used to be a disease that was caused by eating pig. And then people said, oh, that's why God says don't eat pork, because of this disease. Look at all the Jews that don't have this disease, it's because they don't eat pork. That is why God says don't eat pork. And then we cured it. Science came along, finds a cure for this disease. It's no longer a problem. People eat pork all the time without getting sick. So is it no longer relevant? And I think that's exactly the point. The Chachamim tell us that people who initially will not keep the mitzvahs that don't make sense, eventually will also not keep the ones that do make sense. And I think that the main point to end with over here is that that's life. Some things happen to us in life that we understand, some things happen to us in life that we don't understand. And they all come from God. All come from the same exact place. And when we understand that, we understand that everything that God's doing is good for us. All of the mitzvot, all of the chukim, all of the mishpatim are good for us. Then we do them anyway. Shabbat shalom.